Alrighty, folks, welcome along to a Christmas special of the Made to Parade podcast. One of the things that we had thought about doing recently was inviting some members of bands who had a faith in Christ. And tonight we're going to have a conversation with two really well-known members of the band scene, both from the same band, East Belfast Protestant Boys. Tonight we're going to have a conversation with Pip and China. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the conversation as we explore the whole idea of faith and what that means whenever you're a member of a band. Pip, China, welcome along to Made to Parade. Good to have you here.
Thank you. It's good to be here, and I'd like to thank you for inviting us along.
How you doing, sir?
Thank you, Glenn, for the invite, and we're looking forward to this one way or the other,
Brilliant. So, folks, what I thought it would be good to do is, because obviously it's well known to most people that both of you and Ron from the Gertrude Star have had a bit of a change in your lives over the last lot of years, in the sense that you have developed a personal faith in terms of Jesus, Christianity. And I thought it'd be useful to have a conversation with you, because I think it's one aspect of life in the band scene, but also within Protestant community, that's not necessarily always talked about within the context of bands and so on. And I suppose for me, one of the things that I always have thought about is that when we talk about being Protestant or expressing a Protestant identity, you can't get much more Protestant than having a faith in Christ and stuff. So, and we'll talk a wee bit about some of the nuances that brings to us whenever we're talking about people's perception of bands and being a Christian. But Pip, maybe if we just start with you. I'll ask you both the same question, but give us a wee bit of your personal background, and I suppose how you ended up getting involved in bands.
So I think I was around about 8 or 9. There was a band on the Ravenhill Road, and it was called John Clark Memorial Flute Band. It was started up. John Clark was a member of the Ulster Defence Association, what was squashed in Hornby Street by an army Saracen. So there was a band formed in memory of him, and there was a lodge also in memory of him. And I led it. I led the band, and the band lasted about 2 years, and it was through the drink and alcohol that ended up ruining it, you know. So then I think I got to about the age of 11 or 12, and I went to the UVF band. They taught me the basics of the flute, and then I wanted to better myself because they weren't showing any interest in me, really. So I went to Balmacart Defenders, and I was in Balmacart Defenders for about maybe 8 or 9 years. Always dreamed, wanted to be in the Pro Boys. My brother wouldn't let me go to Pro Boys until I was 17. And it was only whenever I was 17, that's whenever I went to Pro Boys.
All right.
And I've been more or less in the Pro Boys ever since.
Did you have a wee stint with the Crimson Star as well? Did you have a wee...
No.
No, I thought you were on the Craigie, no?
No, I was never in the Crimson Star.
I've obviously messed that one up, I thought.
No.
Right,
no.
okay. Great.
I went to Lagan Valley.
Oh, all right, okay.
I was in Lagan Valley. I was due to other circumstances, like, but we'll not go down that road.
All right. So you've been in bands for you've been a member of a band for quite some time. Dead on. Cheda, what about yourself here in terms of where was your start?
My start, I suppose my start, I was 14, 15 at the time. The Troubles were kicking off around East Belfast. I didn't really know a lot about bands, although I was in the Orange Order since I was 8 years old. But the band thing and the Orange thing was sort of a separate identities. Obviously, I just started secondary school, and then again the Troubles were going on, and I had 1 or 2 friends who were killed by the IRA. And we, at that time, the things were hot and heavy down the Newton Arch Road, and you probably would have joined anything at that time. You thought you were the big lad. You had to join anything. You thought by joining a band you were going to change everything overnight. And the local band to me was the Gertrude Star and the Pro Boys. Well, my uncle was in the Proud Boys, and a few of my friends were in the Proud Boys. So I sort of way progressed to the Proud Boys. That was quite a while ago, and I've been there ever since, highs and lows. A lot of other bands had burns on my band scene and things like that, but I've stuck it out with the Proud Boys, and hopefully for the best. And we are where we are now. And as a Christian, it's opened up a complete new kettle of fish.
Okay, so maybe stick with you, China, just for this. Talk to us a bit about what led to you becoming a Christian. What kind of sparked that off?
What led me to becoming a Christian? Well,
Yeah.
there's one or two reasons, mostly guilt. I've said this 2 or 3 times in interviews and things like that, talks. Mine was definitely guilt. I was in a bit of a dark hole. I'd lost most of my family to cancer, who were younger than me. I lost friends, cancer, health. And I was wondering why I was still alive. And then, lo and behold, I got cancer. I took a stroke first, and then if I hadn't have took a stroke, I wouldn't have found out so quick about the cancer. My wife got cancer. I felt in a real dark place. I didn't really, hard to explain what it is when you're in a dark place. But I kept looking at this man, because I was always been friendly with this man, and he had just come through an addiction, and he had went to the Lord, and he says to me one night, "Jenna, what's wrong with you?" And I said, "I don't know what's wrong with me. My head's away. I'm ready for the burn." He says, "What's wrong? Why don't you come up the Alpha?" "Alpha? What's Alpha?" "Yeah, what's Alpha?" I says, "Is it a star in the sky or something like that?" But I knew Pip was sort of like going to church anyway, you know. But he invited me up the very first night when I went in the Alpha in the Ravenhill Road, UT. And I felt safe. Actually, I had to have myself taking a gob later on, because it didn't really give me the first night, and I've got the bug already, is there something? But I kept going, and it was during the Alpha course, well, sort of I took a wee wobbler, and he knows about that, because my wife phoned him in the middle of the night. I get up in the middle of the night, don't know what happened to me, and I don't know why I was going to commit suicide or what I was going to do, but anyway, I got through that, went back to Alpha, done the course, and I gave myself to the Lord.
What was it was it that thing you were talking about there in terms of where you didn't know what had happened to you? Was that a breaking point where you were like kind of going, "Listen, I need to sort something else out here"? Or what was it that was the tipping point for you that made you go, I'm in here, I'm into it, I'm in"?
I think when I had the guilt, I'd really nowhere else to turn. Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't know where I was looking for an escape, but the Lord was working on me. There was no doubt about that. I was waking up during the night, and cold sweats, and getting up and dondering about, and my mind wasn't on things. There was things were working on me. Definitely there was something working on me, and people said to me, "Oh, you just done it to clear your guilt." Maybe I did, but there was something working on me. I still haven't got rid of my guilt.
Yeah.
Still haven't got rid of my guilt, because those questions haven't really been answered yet, you know.
I know you said you haven't got rid of guilt, but whenever you made that decision to kind of go, right, I'm going to follow Jesus here, did you find that there was some level of peace that came your way?
Yeah, I think there was. I think there was a wee bit of a weight lifted my shoulder, but I'm not 100% certain. Maybe it'll never go away, the sort of thing I was thinking, you know.
Uh-huh.
You really, everybody has their bad moments, and they think things that it's personal.
Yeah.
It's all personal. Sometimes the words don't come out right, and you can't express it. Sometimes the words aren't better not coming out sometimes, you know.
Yeah.
But since it came to the Lord, yes, has it helped me? Yes. and I'm hopefully I'll try and help other people who are maybe being in the same sort of position.
Yeah, no worries. Well, what we'll do is we'll explore that a wee bit more as we go along. Pip, maybe we'll go to you and we'll ask you the same question. You know, what was it that kind of led to you making this decision?
So as China says, I had an addiction. I had a cocaine habit, very, very bad. So it was, it started off just an occasional Friday, Saturday thing, and it progressed from that till every chance I could get the have it. It started making me paranoid. I just thought the world hated me. Whenever I was having a conversation with people, I felt that they wanted to do harm to me. Then it was one night I was in the house and started getting convictions, really bad convictions. It was like a projector of everything what I'd done bad was being put in front of me. So I bumped into a pastor, Stephen Thompson, at a funeral. He was doing the funeral and he invited me up to UT. And I was a comedian, a Christian comedian. And here's me, what way is this going to work, right? A Christian comedian. But I went and it was very, very good. As you all know, comedians curse and dirty jokes and all this here, but this guy is clean and he was very funny, very funny. And so I was going up, popping in and out of the church, but I was still using the stuff. And there was one time my dad had asbestosis and he went in the hospital on the Wednesday and he died the following Wednesday. But it was the night before he died, I was up with him and he said to me, son, I want you to change your life. I'm going to die here worrying about you. And my dad died the next day, you see, so I went to what I knew best, cocaine, alcohol. I wasn't seen for a couple of days and my dad, it took about a week. My dad died on the Wednesday and got buried the following Wednesday. So I went on the drink and a coke for a couple of days and then shook myself up and went round to my mother's house. And it was only whenever people started coming to awake and all, that's whenever sort of a reality kicked in, you know. But I tried to end my life, so I did, and the way I done it was I tried to shoot myself and the gun jammed, and at that stage my wife had walked in the bedroom. I thought she was way on out to work, but she jumped on me, what are you doing, and I knew what I was doing. I threw the gun down and went up to church. So I started doing Alpha, and on the 5th week of Alpha, we were walking in the church, and I said to my wife, I feel funny here, something wrong with me. And she says to me, just, we're in now, we'll get you down home, we'll give you tablets and you can go to bed. He says, no, don't need tablets. I'm saying there's something wrong with me. I feel something going on. So we went in and the church thing started going, and next minute the pastor started calling out for people they get saved, and he came down to me and he says, right, Pip, what's happening? And I stood up, started crying, run out of the church, and he came running out after me. And I didn't know he had a mic on still, and he says to me, what's wrong with you? And I says, I don't know. He says, what are you crying for? I says, I don't know. He says, are you crying for me? I mean, catch yourself on. He says, well, what are you crying for? I says, I think I need saved. I think I need a Lord. He says, well, come on then. And we went in and I done the business. But, yeah, best thing I ever did. And that night, the Lord took my addiction away. I didn't need to go to any rehabs or anything like that. Or the Lord took that addiction away. That was 6 years ago. I haven't had a drink and I haven't had a sniff of cocaine from it.
So maybe just sticking with you, and obviously one of the things that with the podcast being focused around the idea of bonds and positive stories from the bond scene, how did your kind of family react, and how did maybe people who were involved in the bond scene react whenever you had made this decision to embrace Christianity?
Well, so obviously, as John said, there's a couple obviously everybody's seen a different side of me. Seen what I wasn't sitting with a depression face on. I was sitting smiling, gleaming, and having a decent conversation with people. And he noticed the bigger change. The ones in the band seen a bigger change. But as you said about support, so I approached the band. John Mina done a thing up in Mullafield Church,
right,
and invited the band to come and play, and then me and John done an interview. And whenever I asked the band for them to come and play in the church, I thought one or two what I said, us playing at church, the backed us 100%.
right.
So we went and we played, and obviously you're in a band yourself. The band captain calls the tunes. We don't know what we're going to play. And the last tune he called was a sash, and I could have dug a hole and jumped into it. So I could have. And after it, I went and I apologised to the pastor, and the pastor says to me, "What are you apologising for?" He says, "The sash is an Irish history song."
Yeah.
Says, "Don't be apologising." And he'd be right. So I felt a wee bit better then. But on the support, I thought once the band had finished playing, they'd have bolted, no out. But they all stayed and listened to what we had to say, And I think it was then that night in particular that the band hadn't really heard what our reasons for it was for until that night. And they were all, after it, they were sending me messages of support and fair play to you. I wish I could take that step and whatever,
That surprised you?
Yeah, it did. Yeah.
Why do you think it surprised you?
Because I didn't think. Obviously, if the shoe had been on the other foot, I probably wouldn't have been sitting in a church playing a flute or whatever, So yes, it did surprise me, to be honest. Like I remember we used to do church parades.
Yeah.
I don't think any of our band ever went in the church.
Very few.
Sure we didn't.
Very few.
So I would say now, if we were to do a church parade, I would say a good majority of them would go in.
Right, okay.
So they would.
John, what about you? What was the reaction like in terms of either family and bond mates in terms of whenever they heard, hey, you've converted to Christianity?
Yeah. Well, I remember the night that they'd get saved. Here's me, right? I'm saved now. I'm going to have to go home to the wife. So went into the house. Nearly crapped on the door. I nearly crapped on the door. And I said, just come straight and couldn't hold it any longer. And I says, look, I've something to tell you. I get saved tonight. And anybody knows, well, you all know women, you all know your ways, and you get one of them looks. A woman's look, and she goes, yeah, and but to be quite honest with you, the very first night, I think she was more than pleased.
Right.
Not maybe pleased isn't the right word. I can't get the right word, whether it's glad or don't know, but I think she accepted it because I'd been going to church anyway, and there was nobody forcing me to go to church, and I hadn't missed.
You didn't.
And I attended the full Alpha, and I was going to church on the Sunday and all and things like that. As for the bond, as Pip just said there, it wasn't long after I got saved that we were invited up to the church that, again, what Philip said, the Willowfield Church, and the place was packed. And there's bonds met from all over the country there, Portadown and Coleraine and Armagh. And I took a panic attack.
Right, okay.
And I was going, whoa, I mean, I didn't have to do this when I didn't go to church. But I was actually, that night I think was a big turning point for me.
Okay.
Regarding my own band and my own friends. So since then, there's been 3 or 4 boys in our band have came to the Lord.
Right, okay.
And one of the biggest nights probably was I've probably been going to UT for about a year, I'm not too sure. And Ron Stitt, whom I knew anyway, he was a big rival, obviously the pro boys in the country. That's legendary.
Yeah.
But he says to me, John, did you get saved? I says, yeah. He says, do you fancy coming up the Ballybean? I said, Ballybean? What do I want to go to Ballybean for? There's nothing up. No, it was being sarcastic at the time, but he says, will you come up to the wee church and see what it's like? So I went up to the wee Ballybean church, and now they can't beat me out of it, sort of thing. And suppose it's open since in Ballybean. We've been in some churches since it, playing with Ron and getting about. And it's opened up a whole new chapter in my life, and both our lives, on Ron's lives, and hopefully other people's lives who they've seen that you can be a loyal person and a bondsman and a Christian.
Yeah.
In fact, there is quite a few people within Christianity who are quite very talented musicians. And I think it's a bit of a myth in some places that Christians look down on ordinary bondsmen. I think it's a bit of a myth. I don't know where these myths all start.
Yeah.
But I certainly have not seen any opposition.
Okay, well, maybe we could talk a wee bit about has your faith journey kind of changed your outlook in regards to participation in the band?
No, it's worse. It's even it's worse. I don't think we've what's the way we go about things. Maybe we've changing gradually. We've changed now from the Christians in the band is becoming a bigger influence within the band.
Okay.
My own band.
Right.
Hopefully other bands too.
But it hasn't changed. You don't have this idea that because you're a Christian, that's in conflict with the idea of being a member of a band. You don't see the two things being in conflict?
No, it's not.
No.
No, I thought it might have been, but
Right.
I think it was, I don't know what I was telling myself that story. I was telling myself that story myself.
And is that because you were intimating there a wee bit about how you haven't seen any real opposition in terms of being involved in a band and in terms of connecting with other Christians? Was there maybe a myth yourself that you maybe had in your own mind that, hey, Christians will not want anything to do with us because we're in bands?
Totally true.
Yeah.
I think I had it in my own head that if I became a Christian, I was going to turn into some sort of a goody two shoes overnight, and there'd be angels following me and all this, which is complete nonsense. Yes, you do have your faith, and getting the proper words out is a wee bit tight for me, but I haven't felt any opposition. I've felt I'm more content.
Yeah.
I listen to people more. Hopefully I'm trying to help other people too. I think with the proof's in the pudding when myself and Pip and Ron go about churches.
Yeah.
And you go into the audience and you can see 6 or 7 fellas out of band sitting there. No matter where you go, and you wouldn't have thought you'd have seen them in a church.
Sure.
So that's a winner right away.
Uh-huh.
And it's all been good. Now I'm sure there is one or two who are skeptical, because I'm skeptical too sometimes. But at the minute, no, I'm glad I haven't experienced that. I don't want to, but I mean, everybody has their opinion. I'm sure some people have an opinion about me being a Christian.
Okay.
You know?
Well, do you know what? Because I think it's one of those things. I think whenever, because obviously at one point I had a bit of a faith journey myself. And I definitely always found that there was maybe that internal conflict about the things that you're involved in, to say, the whole idea of, you're a new person, come out of the world, and you're a new person, don't be involved with the old things, everything, put on everything that's new and stuff. And I always struggled with that myself personally, because I was like, well, how do you expect anyone else to hear about this if I take myself out of those scenarios? You're nodding away there, Pip. Is that something you've experienced?
Well, my thing would be, who reaches these people?
Yeah.
Who reaches these people? As Christians can reach people that I can't reach, and I can. So my thing would be, I can reach into paramilitaries, I can reach into bands, because I've been involved in both. My thing was, my pastor wanted me to leave the band, and I refused. I said no, and I says, I've give up my past friends, and if it was to give up the band, what else would I have in life? Like, I can't be surrounded in Christians 24 hours a day or whatever. The only time I would be surrounded with in Christians is whenever I go to my Bible classes and church on a Sunday night or whatever. Other than that, I wouldn't be with Christians. So I said to him, why do you want me to leave? And he says, I'm scared of the old Pip coming back. And I says, well, sure, this is what I have to adventure.
Okay.
Yeah. I have to adventure that to see if the old Pip will come back.
Yeah.
So up to now, 6 years, no, the old Pip hasn't come back.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, temptation has been there.
Yeah.
I've seen myself being, but not in the band scene. I've maybe called into a bar for 20 minutes or whatever, and I'm sitting on a Coca-Cola drink, and maybe somebody out of the blue says, here, do you want a bit of this? And I've went, aye, and then whoa, hold on, no, I don't touch it no more.
Yeah.
But other than that, as I say, I can come down my own level and talk to people in bands, and I've got my own track. I take out, and it's me in my band uniform on the front, and it gives you my whole story. And then there's verses on the back, and my contact numbers on it. And I've handed them out, and the people that would phone me is good, so I've got a good response out of it.
Okay. Get on.
Just add something to that there, something that maybe I should talk about. People said to me, John, when you become a Christian, are you packing your shopping? I said, what do you mean? Are you going to pack the shopping? Because obviously in my shop, it's full of Loyalist memorabilia and things like that. I says, no, I'm not. I says, because it's a part of my history. I says, there's nothing there to be ashamed of in the shop. And I'd be quite honest with you, I think there's more Christians now coming through the door of my shop than there ever was.
Right, okay.
And they can see that it's not all about paramilitaries, it's about culture and it's about things like that.
Uh-huh.
And I thought it would have been a big, big obstacle, my shop. But it's been the opposite. And I'm glad for it. So that's an R plus on my side,
So that's an interesting point, I think, as well, because when you think of the idea of faith and the whole idea of, this idea of coming out of the world, there's all this kind of thing there. And I'm looking at this, has it changed the way you engage with some of the sort of, like the traditions, the music, the symbols, all those kind of things that may be associated with Loyalist culture? Because people always think of Protestant Loyalist culture and they automatically think paramilitary, they automatically think the worst off in terms of that there, but they don't always kind of recognize, well, here, the whole idea of being a Protestant actually is really about someone who's following a particular path of faith. So in some sense, you're you're more Protestant than maybe 99% of people who are involved in bonds in that sense. Have you found any struggle with that there in terms of dealing with, symbols being around certain things? Because obviously when you go out on parade or you're in particular circles, you can't avoid it.
Yeah.
It's just there.
You can't. I know what you're getting at, but to be honest with you, since I've came to faith, it's strengthened my loyalties in more ways than one. Loyalty to the God and Jesus, but also my own personal loyalties, and that involves too my loyalties to the crown and my country and my faith, because we're there to be part of your faith. Yeah. We're not there just to shove your faith down at somebody else. They're there to be the positive side of it, I hope.
Yeah.
And it is a struggle. It's not easy, to be quite honest with you. It's not easy at times. And we all think, maybe it's wee sweetie mice in your head, and we're thinking here that, what are they thinking about me? What do they see me going, there's China and Pepper, 2 honey monsters. What are they at? They think, you automatically think, well, they're up to something, and I can assure you, there's nothing sinister behind it. We've all had personal.
Yeah.
Everything is very, very personal.
Well, I think whenever you listen to what you both shared at the start of this, you both mentioned about being in a dark place. You both recognised, hey, that if I don't do something about where I am right now, the only option I seem to have is to take myself out of this scenario. You thought about that. You were very much in the vein of that, and only for probably what you would have to say divine intervention, that might have been the case. So I think whenever you hear that, I think for me that dispels the whole idea that there's something else that's motivating it, because you know what it's like here. People have this thing, good living for a living, that kind of thing, and the perception that either you've changed to get out of something.
Correct.
You know what I mean? And because you've had that, there was numerous people when you think back, even over the course of the Troubles and stuff, and someone's they've turned to God so that their sentence gets shortened, or they've turned to God so
to get away
from something else or whatever else. Because there was obviously a long period of time where association with a paramilitary group was a bit like the mafia. There's 2 ways out. You either become a Christian or you're dead. Was the only ways out, or if you paid someone a whole stack of money. But less said about that, the better. But but that was the kind of perception. So you can see where some of that actually comes from. But I think and I think this is one of the things that I have, is unless you really know the story behind where someone made this decision, we're not in a position to talk about it at all. We can't really say, it's like, let them have their opinion. Have your opinion. But if you really want to know what happened, ask me. And I think that's one of the things that I think is good about this as well, is that you're taking the opportunity to even a wider audience to go, here's what happened. Now you do with that what you want, and I'll keep walking the way that I want. Yeah. So one of the things that did you find? What opportunities have you found then as a result of, in terms of your faith? Did you actually share your faith as a member of a bond and in the bond scene? What opportunities have presented themselves? I know you've met the thing at Willowfield, but and your tracks, are there other things that have kind of presented themselves to you in terms of being able to share your faith?
Well, as I say, we've gone around now, travelling around different churches, and it's all denominations. It's Church of Ireland, Methodist, City of Belfast, or City blah blah. We'll say that again. We call it Baptist.
Right.
I personally haven't experienced any opposition at all, and it's all been positive with me. And I know you were trying to say there maybe we struggle with a bit. People look at you and they go, they're trying to get away from something here. For me, it's always been for God and Ulster anyway.
Right.
People.
Because you mean it.
Me and him have these wee arguments about that, but it's when you go to listen to somebody doing a testimony, it's personal.
Yeah.
And some of the testimonies would scare you like they would, and you feel humble sometimes when you think about yourself. You go, oh my goodness. The only thing I maybe not struggle with, when you go to a church and somebody gets up and says, I came from a Christian family and it was inevitable that I would be a Christian.
Mm-hmm.
I don't, that never was going to happen for me, because things had moved on anyway, and we always went to Sunday school and all, but I find that really hard sometimes. Was some people born to be a Christian? I don't know. But for me personally, it is personal.
Yeah.
When you're in a dark hole, you know where to turn. And I turned to the Lord, and maybe could have turned to something else, I don't know. But the way it's worked out pretty good up to the minute.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Pip, what about you? What opportunities have you had then outside of that to share your faith? And maybe to change that a bit, but what way have people responded to you in terms of the idea of you starting to share some of your faith? You've maybe drew alongside someone and you've started to share something that might be useful to them?
During lockdown, I had people ringing me. Because of my circumstances with drugs, their circumstances with drugs, and they were contacting me, and I was trying to lead them on a better path. There was a couple I had up at the church whenever the church started opening up again. I delivered a guy to the Lord in my living room. He's still going strong, although he goes to a different church from me, but he's still going strong. There was another guy what was in the band. He left the band because he felt that it was like the temptation of other things was there. Yeah. So he left the band. But you touched on a subject there about people having this thing that he's only turned to Christianity to get out of paramilitaries or whatever. I can tell you now, it wasn't for to get out of paramilitaries. If I hadn't have done something with my life, I'd have been getting buried.
No, you wouldn't be here. I mean, we can listen to what you're saying. You wouldn't be here.
I'd have been dead. And I had no thing of going to a doctor or going to shrinks or anything like that there. I needed to find something better than them, and I found him, and it was the Lord that rescued me. Yeah.
And one of the things that you mentioned there, and I think it's what you mentioned, one of the guys that left because he didn't feel that he could stay within the bond scene in terms of that there. Is there anything that you've struggled with? I mean, obviously, whenever bonds go out, there's drink, there's other bits and pieces, there's the crack can sometimes be a bit, let's say, edgy or whatever. How do you find yourself being involved in
my one wouldn't be with drink or drugs now, because it's way over my head. But my thing would be anything within the bond. I want better. I want better for our bond. So I've seen me getting in the hot-tempered arguments.
Different eyes now. He's different eyes.
But different arguments with people within the band and all. And then next month they thought you were a Christian. Yeah, but I'm human. I want better for my band.
Yeah,
or maybe we're learning a tune and somebody's not playing what they're. Well, you read what's on the paper. I thought you were a Christian. You're not allowed to lose your temper.
That's it.
But no.
It's a stick to beat you with now, isn't it? They kind of go to you can't say anything to me,
But talking about temptation, the temptation's not there. I drive. If it was a bus, I still drive. I take my car, drive, do the parade, shake hands with all the boys after the parade, good going, and then straight in their car and home again. That's how I deal with it. I couldn't see myself without it being in a band, and other Christians maybe have this deception on us about being in bonds, but I know what they're concerned about. They're concerned is the old going to come back on us.
Yeah, yeah. And I think, but do you know what? That's where I struggle a wee bit with that myself, I'll have to say. And I don't want to get like theological and stuff here. But either you believe that Jesus is the power to save you from anything, or you don't.
Yeah, yeah. It's all about your faith.
And I think, in that regard, it's like kind of going, oh, even when you mentioned about your pastor saying, I'm afraid the old person's going to come back. Well, either your conversion was real or it wasn't. And either Jesus raising from the dead is the power over sin and death, which means that, hey, there's nothing that you can face that hasn't been faced already.
Well, I'll use my own term, Nathan. He uses for God and Ulster. I use in God we trust.
Right. Okay.
You've seen that on murals. And, you've seen that in murals, in God we trust. So that's in God I trust.
Yeah, no, but I think if because you mentioned straight away there, you were saying you'd had an addiction, and you became a Christian, and almost instantaneously it was taken away. And for me, there's like kind of going, well, there's one big massive thing that was ruining my life, and my profession of faith, and it's gone. That inkling is gone. And you kind of go, well, what is it? What can I face from here now that God can't help me through? I think that's probably the perspective I would be looking at and going, either Jesus is God or he's not. And I think that's the bottom line for us. And the other thing that I always think about, and I had this conversation with a few people. Obviously, I don't walk in terms of faith and stuff anymore, but I always thought the day was, you know what? And we touched on it earlier, was unless someone draws alongside, so how are they ever going to know about this? We mentioned about this. And I think for me, one of the most powerful ways that was ever put across to me was when people talk about the idea of the incarnation, Jesus becoming a man and all that kind of thing. One of the ways it was put across to me was God had absolutely no reference or experience of what it was like to be man separated from God. Mm-hmm. Had every experience of God being separated from man and the fact that relationship was broken, but there was no experience of what it was like for man to be separated from him, and that's why Jesus became a man, so that God knew exactly what it was like to be separate. And if he's had the experience, then and has overcome it, he gives his people the ability to overcome whatever they face. And I always thought that was one of the best ways of, it was like God was taking a class in being human.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It was like whenever he sent Jesus to look after us in terms of down on the cross and stuff. So one of the things that I did want to talk to you about as well was how does it, in terms of your faith, has it given you any new perspective on your identity? You said it's kind of reinforced your identity, and you've kind of made it, it's had an influence on that.
It's made me a better father.
Right, okay.
A better grandfather. I do more family things with my children and my grandchildren. I would go as far as saying it's made me a better husband, because now, I didn't take. Maybe for years I took my wife for granted, where now I respect her more. And I used to say to her, "Why did you hang on, waiting on me?" And all. She says, "Because I knew there was better to come."
Your wife's a Christian?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
She is now. She got saved after me.
Right, okay.
So she did.
And how did, if you don't mind me kind of get into, how did she kind of, how did she respond initially to you doing this stuff? And
well, so...
was she saying, are you gagging or what? Or what was she?
At the start, she'd say she wanted to wait to see if I really meant it.
Right.
But how she got saved was she had a conviction of the Lord had returned, and the Lord was in the church, and the doors was closed, and she was outside the church doors, and she was banging, and she says it was like a wee bit of like a Titanic thing.
Okay.
No, I was on one side of the doors and she was on the other, and she wasn't getting to go with me.
Wow, right, okay.
So that's whenever she gets saved.
And what about yourself then, China, in regards to that? Has it given you any new perspective on your identity, or in terms of maybe even what it means to be a part of your own community and stuff like that?
Oh, definitely. There's no doubt about it. I'm a wiser. Don't know. Just a wee thing you touched on there earlier was what way me and Pip are maybe looked at within the band, our own band now. I think there's a lot of youngsters in our band now, young ones, and their parents are looking up to us now because they know their kids are safe.
Yeah.
They know no matter where we go, Pip and China's there, and there's a couple of others there, and they're going, that'll do me. Trust, they put their trust in us.
Right.
And we put our trust in the Lord.
Yeah. How's that sit with you? Because that's a bit of a heavier responsibility as well. Because I know, for me, bonds have always looked out for the younger members.
Yeah, true.
They've always looked out for the younger members.
Yeah.
You know, because I always remember whenever we were away anywhere, like I remember the bond captain on it, whenever coming down to our house and saying, listen to my mum, we're heading to such and such a place. There's a good chance we're going to be back late tonight. But, you know, he'll be with us. He'll not be left on his own in any shape or form. And that was, for me, was like, you didn't have to do that. You know what I mean? So there's always been a sense, but there's maybe something different now because of, so we were saying one way that people perceive you one way, but then you're saying now parents are perceiving you a completely different way.
Yes, there's no doubt about that. I know what you're saying 2 years ago, the older man always looked up to the young ones, in most cases anyway.
Yeah.
I think years ago too, we were drawn into other things. I think another thing too, we maybe forgetting about too, that everybody now runs about with a mobile phone, and you can read everything from God till witchcraft or drugs, drink, and it's all on phones. And that's a big part in the world now. You know, it's all about everything's on screen now and on that there. But I tend to think that most people within my own band, they do see us, most of them see us in a different way. The band scene has changed tremendously as past 20 years.
I think so as well, because what I were talking about before we started recording was, it's funny because we did a podcast with the guys from Flute Bond Church, and even the idea of something being called Flute Bond Church is kind of almost like a bit strange to have. But you guys have been involved, and you have went down a few times and sat in with those guys, and it must be affirming for you to kind of go down and see 30, 40, maybe 50 people, you know, who involved in bands, expressing their faith and using their instruments and their traditional music as a means of doing that.
Well, obviously we went down a couple of times, and what it did for me was, when I can come out of it, sorry I'm mumbling away here, when I come out of it, it sort of way, it forced me more to go back to my band and try and make a difference.
Right. What was it you seen that made you want to do that? What was it about?
Well, when I went into the room and I seen 60 or 70 fellas sitting there, because I had never heard about the wee church band only until we were invited down during the summer. And this was in a big Church of Ireland. Church of Ireland.
Yeah. Was that St. Mark's, isn't it?
Yeah. And out the back, they had the barbecue and all going. They had the run of the church out the back. There was nobody running about with a dog collar on and telling them what to do, or we women going, look at the mess and all this. There was nothing like that. And these boys were genuine about their faith, and they were also genuine about their own bonds. And I thought it was tremendous. I really did.
Did it reaffirm things for you as well, that, hey, this is all right?
I don't know if you remember the Faith Defenders.
Yeah, we did.
The Faith Defenders.
Funnily enough, you're getting called that now, aren't you?
It was only up the road from me, up in Paisley's Church, and I remember there was a couple of boys in it that whenever I went there, Pro Boys, after they broke up, you see, they were in the Pro Boys.
Lawrence.
And
Davy McKim.
Yeah, and Big
Hovis was on it.
There's a few of them I think went to the Paul McCart Defenders, because I think Paul Brown and Mark Harwood were both at the Faith Defenders as well, weren't they?
Aye, But church flute band, it wasn't strange to me, but I'd heard about them before. But there was the bigger thing was there was boys out of bands, but we were out on the streets at the band parades, and they were called the Band of Brothers.
Right.
And I remember talking to one of them, and actually, whenever we went to a church flute band that night during the summer, he came along that night to see me. And I was talking to him. We were down at Portadown. There was a parade in Portadown, and I was standing talking to him, and he was getting out leaflets. Every time I got a track, even whenever I wasn't a Christian, I would never throw a track away. I kept it and brought it home. Sometimes I read them, sometimes I didn't. But this particular track that the Band of Brothers gave me, because of the setup, it meant more to me because they were ex-bondsmen.
Yeah.
And I took this track, you see, and next minute I found myself talking to him, and I was starting crying to him.
Right.
You know, because I knew what I was doing was wrong. I was sinning. I was dirty, you know. And I was trying to explain to him, you know I'm dirty, I know I'm wrong and all this here. And I was crying. And actually, I think that night, I would have given my heart to the Lord that night, but only next minute, all I heard was our whistle blowing, right, come on. And then next minute, I was away.
Yeah. Escape.
Sorry, that mate, I'm away here. But he came that night, the thing, and
did he remember you?
Testimony. Yes, that was the whole reason he came, you know. But I think Band of Brothers don't do a good job. They're out on the street at the band parades and all, and they're handing out their tracks, their own wee personal tracks. And the church flute band, it didn't open my eyes because I knew what was going on about it. Yeah. And I thought it was it's a good idea.
Yeah.
Because the guy that runs it, he brings all the young boys in and takes them till what do you call them, Ralph Ryland Bond? Yep. Prada Hill. He gets a chance to take all the fluters and all down to there and drummers and all.
One of the things that I love about that, whenever we were talking to them, was even because everybody's a member of a different band, and the whole idea of you being in, because there used to be, I remember saying you can't be in two bands, you know, you can't be, you know, even the idea of guesting with other bands sometimes causes people to lose their minds and stuff. One of the things I loved about it was, even though they were wearing either the polo top or the jacket that they have, everybody still wears their own band's trousers, whatever they're out with the flute band shirts, and it's only if they're available to walk on that. They're not asking them to do something that's away from their own band and stuff. And I think of the fact that it complements the band scene, but it also gives, I think for me, the idea that it gives people within the band scene who are practicing Christians an opportunity to meet up with like-minded people themselves within a scenario that's very, very familiar to them. And I think that's a great...
Now, there's boys go to it, but they aren't Christians.
Yeah.
And the love... They love being around all them boys. I'm on their chat, so I am, and it's amazing some of the questions what the non-Christians asked. You know, now I don't comment, you know, because I don't really know the boys enough to maybe comment or whatever, you know. But some of the questions they asked, and then they would put on, you know, happy birthday to this one and happy birthday to that one, and this one's going to do this and that one's going to do that. And sometimes you get a good vibe from what you're reading, you know. But we're going to be starting one ourselves this summer.
Right, okay.
Church flute band. So be on the guard of getting an invite to come along to it, Glenn. And here, I just want to touch on something, Glenn. Right. You know, you may have walked away from God. God hasn't walked away from you.
Listen, now, you know, I'm here asking questions.
It's just funny the way I come in the conversation there about the faith defenders and a band of, 25, 30 years ago?
Maybe more,
and it's come back up, and then it's possible now that there could be other wee bonds springing up But the Faith Defenders, to me, was the first Christian band I'd ever seen, apart from the Sally Ann bands and all. And there's still boys from them 30 years ago are still in the band scene.
Yeah.
So it's not a new thing. It's a thing that's re-emerged. It keeps emerging. And funny, back then, the Faith Defenders used to have a church parade where it was only bands in East Belfast. And I think every band in East Belfast used to do it on the Sunday night, if I remember back, you know.
No, they had their own competition.
But they did have a church parade.
Yeah, but they had a competition.
Yeah. But it's funny the way we're talking here about us two being Christians now, getting involved in the band scene and all that there and trying to bring boys into it. I think it's always been there. It re-emerges, something sparks it. But maybe a certain man on a certain band, you know.
But I think one of the things that I think that it maybe is that it's not necessarily seen as part of loyalist expression.
Yeah.
You know, that the idea of being a Christian is not necessarily always seen as a part of the loyalist expression. And I think whenever you think of where the likes of the Proud Boys, the Gertrude Star came from, and that sort of, you know, the 70s period, you know, whenever Blood and Thunder was starting to birth. I mean, the Blood and Thunder bomb movement was a protest movement.
The start of the Troubles was the birth of the big bomb explosion.
Yeah, and you know, and it was the idea of let's throw people out on us, and we need to have something that's loud, abrasive, that gives us this kind of thing. And it had that connotation the whole way, and it still to some degree has that connotation the whole way through. And the faith aspect of our community maybe wasn't necessarily a major part of that. I think that's maybe fair to say. And whenever you look back at where our traditions come from, when we think it all the way, when we go all the way back into the Glorious Revolution in terms of King William and stuff, you know, that there was the issue that we're talking about there is faith and religious liberty, you know, and I think, you know, whenever we
they even beat the drum then.
But I think, but it's important. I think that maybe what we're talking about here is people like yourselves who are on that journey within the bonds are actually on a journey into the actual roots of our community and the roots of our identity and the roots of our traditions, rather than discovering something new. That it's actually you're actually connecting with something that's hundreds of years old. Yeah. So what might your advice be to someone who's in a band, who's maybe in a similar experience to where you guys are? They're finding themselves, they're either in a rut, they're in a dark place. What are you going to say to them?
I was just going to finish on that, Glenn. So this is to any of the band's men that are watching, Christian and non-Christian. So if you're in a dark place, and I look at church as being like a hospital. Yeah. So if you're sick or whatever, you go to a hospital. But God is better than any specialist, doctor, surgeon, whatever. Go to church. Go and experience church. And even if any of you want to speak to me and John whenever we're out at the parades, feel free. Come over and talk to me. But I was in a bad place, and church helped me. God helped me, and I'm throwing that out to you. And you can still be in the band and walk with God. And this is for Christians. You can be in a band. Come out and join the band and express your culture.
Anything to add that, John?
I think Pip sort of way summed that up. He said, as I say, don't be shy. And you're really having problems with your own in a wee dark hole, as we all say. Come speak to somebody. Don't keep it in. If you're in a band and you feel a wee bit weird about it, come and speak to me and Pip or other people. Maybe you'll attract somebody else, and maybe you'll see a turnaround in your wee band. It only takes one or two for that spark. You'll certainly not be alone when it comes to tell your faith. and it'll strengthen your bond no ends. It'll open different doors. And that really is a big thing for me. But the doors aren't shut. Well, for years, the doors were shutting on the Pro Boys, on the Goodrich Stars. Now they're opening up. I'm sure that's the same for other bands, you know.
But well, one of the things that definitely will keep an eye out is what if you are starting up your own wee version of the Flute Band Church thing. Let us know whenever you've got that up and running,
Certainly.
and we'll come down and we'll do a wee episode from highlighting what you are doing and how you are getting on. But folks, just want to say thank you for taking the time out to come and share your stories with us. It's not always easy to do, you know, but I really appreciate what you have done. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Glenn, and made the parade.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Alrighty, folks, well, I hope you enjoyed the conversation there with Pip and Shayna. And I hope it gives you a wee bit of an insight into their journey and where their whole, I suppose, their walk in faith started from and how they're trying to live that out, even as they're still members of bands. One of the things that we talked about there was there is this kind of perception that if you're walking in faith that you can't actually be a member of a band. And I think from the conversation that we've had there and referencing the whole idea that, you know, there's a flute band church down in Portadown, that's obviously not the case. So, folks, thank you very much for watching. We really appreciate your support, and we want to wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And we'll see you all again in January when we return with more episodes of the Made to Pray podcast. So until then, look after yourselves and take it easy.